How could you, Carson? Just days from our anniversary? I glanced at the crumpled love letter in my hand, bile rising in my throat. The words blurred as tears stung my eyes. Carson's face paled. Margot, please let me explain. Explain what? I spat. That you've been having an affair behind my back? With whom? My mind raced, trying to make sense of the betrayal. He sighed, running a hand through his disheveled hair. It was a moment of weakness, a mistake. It didn't mean anything. Didn't mean anything? I echoed, my voice trembling with rage. Then what is this? I waved the damning letter in his face. Carson flinched, his eyes downcast. I'm sorry, Margot, truly, but we can't tell my mother. Not now. You know how fragile her health is. His mother, Faye, the woman who had embraced me as her own daughter when Carson and I married 5 years ago. A pang of guilt twisted in my gut, but it was quickly overshadowed by the bitter taste of betrayal. So, you expect me to just pretend everything is fine? I asked, incredulous. To lie to her, to everyone, while you carry on with your affair? Carson stepped closer, his hands outstretched in a placating gesture. It's over, I swear. It was a foolish mistake that won't happen again. But if we tell her now, so close to our anniversary, it could devastate her. Please, Margot, for her sake, let's keep this between us for now. I searched his eyes, desperate for any glimmer of truth, any sign that the man I loved was still in there. But all I saw was a stranger, a coward willing to sacrifice my trust for his own selfish reasons. Clenching my jaw, I nodded curtly. Fine, we'll keep up appearances for now, but mark my words, Carson, this isn't over. You've shattered my trust, and I won't forget that. Relief washed over his features, but I felt no satisfaction, only a hollow ache in my chest. As he reached out to embrace me, I recoiled, my body rigid with resentment. In that moment, a seed of determination took root within me. I would play along, bide my time, and when the opportunity presented itself, I would unleash the full force of my fury. Carson's betrayal would not go unanswered, and he would soon learn the true cost of his deceit. With a steely resolve, I turned away, already plotting my revenge. The anniversary celebration would be a mere charade, a calm before the storm I intended to unleash upon our fractured family. Margot, I don't trust her taking care of you, Carson murmured as he caressed my swollen belly. But there's no one else. I swallowed hard, my voice trembling. I'll be fine, Carson. It's just for a few days while you're away on business. His brow furrowed with concern, but he nodded reluctantly. All right, but promise me you'll call if she gives you any trouble. As if on cue, the doorbell rang, and Faye's familiar silhouette appeared through the frosted glass. I plastered on a smile, determined not to let her see my apprehension. Margot, darling! Faye enveloped me in a suffocating embrace, her saccharine tone already grating on my nerves. How are my beautiful grandchildren treating you? We're doing well, Faye, I replied, extricating myself from her grip. Thank you for offering to help while Carson is away. Her eyes narrowed ever so slightly, but the smile remained fixed in place. Of course, dear. What are mothers-in-law for? Carson cleared his throat, shooting me a pointed look before turning to his mother. I'll be back in a few days. Take good care of her, Mom. Don't you worry about a thing, Faye cooed, patting his arm reassuringly. Margot and the babies will be in excellent hands. As Carson departed, I couldn't shake the sense of dread that settled in the pit of my stomach. Faye's kindly demeanor was already beginning to fray, revealing glimpses of the true nature I had witnessed during her tirades against me. The first few hours passed without incident, but as the day wore on, Faye's criticisms grew more frequent and cutting. Margot, dear, are you sure you should be eating that? She clucked disapprovingly as I reached for a snack. You wouldn't want to put on too much weight, would you? I bit my tongue, reminding myself that confrontation would only escalate the situation. Later, as I attempted to tidy up the living room, Faye sked loudly. Honestly, Margot, is this how you keep house? No wonder Carson is always so stressed. The barbs continued, each one chipping away at my resolve. By evening, I was utterly exhausted, both physically and emotionally. The next morning, Faye's true colors emerged in full force. Up and at 'em, Margot, she trilled, throwing open the curtains to let in the harsh morning light. There's so much to be done around here. Before I could protest, she thrust a list of chores into my hands, a veritable marathon of tasks that would have been daunting for someone without the added strain of a twin pregnancy. But Faye, I'm not sure I should be doing all of this, I ventured cautiously. The doctor said I need to take it easy. Her eyes flashed with barely concealed contempt. Nonsense. A little hard work never hurt anyone. Now get moving, or do you want my grandchildren to grow up in a pigsty? Cowed by her forceful tone, I reluctantly began tackling the list, my back and feet aching with every task. Faye hovered nearby, offering a steady stream of criticism and barbed comments that left me feeling utterly demoralized. By the time Carson returned home, I was a physical and emotional wreck, my body racked with pain and my spirit crushed by Faye's relentless onslaught. As he took in my haggard appearance, concern etched deep lines across his brow. "Margot, what happened? Are you all right?" Before I could respond, Faye swooped in, her saccharine mask firmly in place. "She's just been overdoing it, that's all. You know how nesting can be for expectant mothers." I opened my mouth to protest, to reveal the truth about her abusive behavior, but one withering glance from Faye silenced me. In that moment, I realized that confronting her directly would only lead to further anguish. No, I would bide my time, gather my strength, and when the opportunity presented itself, I would unleash the full force of my fury upon Faye and Carson both. Their betrayals would not go unanswered, and they would soon learn the true cost of underestimating my resilience. "You're just like your mother, worthless," Faye hissed, her words cutting through the silence like a knife. "I don't take orders from a failure." My heart sank as her cruel words echoed in the empty house. Memories of my late mother's gentle smile and unwavering love flooded my mind, a stark contrast to the venom spewing from Faye's lips. "How dare you speak about her like that?" I managed, my voice trembling with a mixture of grief and rage. Faye's lips curled into a contemptuous sneer. "What? You think you're better than me? Than this family? You're nothing but a leech, leeching off my son's success." I recoiled as if struck, her words cutting deeper than any physical blow. Was this truly how she saw me, after all these years of trying to be the perfect daughter-in-law? "I've given everything to this family," I protested, my hands instinctively cradling my swollen belly. "These are Carson's children I'm carrying." Faye's gaze dropped to my midsection, her expression twisting into one of disdain. "Don't flatter yourself. Once those brats are born, you're out of the picture, I'll make sure of it." A chill ran down my spine as the full weight of her threat sank in. She meant to take my children from me, to sever the bond between a mother and her newborns. The thought was utterly unthinkable. Yet I knew in that moment that Faye was capable of any cruelty imaginable. "You're a monster," I whispered, hot tears stinging my eyes. Faye's laughter was cold, devoid of any warmth or humor. "I'm a realist, dear, and the reality is you're not fit to be a mother, not to my grandchildren." In that instant, something shifted within me. The fear and grief that had paralyzed me moments before gave way to a burning determination. I would not allow this bitter, twisted woman to dictate the course of my life or my family's future. Squaring my shoulders, I met Faye's icy glare with a steely resolve of my own. "You're wrong, Faye. I am a mother, and I will fight with every breath in my body to protect my children from your poisonous influence." Her eyes narrowed dangerously, but I held my ground, emboldened by the knowledge that I was fighting for something far greater than myself. "We'll see about that," she spat, turning on her heel and storming from the room. As her footsteps faded, I sank onto the couch, my hands trembling as I fumbled for my phone. With shaking fingers, I typed out a message to Carson, pleading for his help, his intervention. But even as I hit send, a part of me knew that this battle could not be won through his involvement alone. Faye's hatred ran too deep, her grip on our family too tight. No, if I wanted to truly free myself and my children from her toxic grasp, I would need to take matters into my own hands. And as I felt the tiny flutters of life within me, I knew that I would stop at nothing to ensure their safety and happiness. The war had begun, and I would emerge victorious, no matter the cost. "You think you're special because you're carrying his babies? Once they're born, you're out." Faye's words cut deeper than any knife, slicing through the fragile peace I had managed to maintain. I clutched my swollen belly protectively, as if shielding my unborn children from the venom dripping from her tongue. "What are you saying, Faye?" Her lips twisted into a cruel smirk. "Exactly what you think, dear. Once those brats are out of you, I'll make sure they stay right where they belong, with their real family." A chill ran down my spine as the full weight of her threat sank in. She meant to take my children from me, to sever the sacred bond between mother and child before it could even form. "You're insane," I breathed, my voice trembling with a potent mixture of fear and rage. "They're my babies, Faye. You can't just take them away." Faye's laughter was cold, devoid of any warmth or humor. "Watch me. You're nothing but an incubator, Margot, a means to an end. Once you've served your purpose, you'll be discarded like the worthless trash you are." Bile rose in my throat as I fought the urge to lash out, to claw and scratch until this vile woman understood the depth of my fury. But I knew such actions would only give her more ammunition, more justification for her twisted schemes. Instead, I forced myself to remain calm, to meet her icy glare with a steely resolve of my own. "I won't let you do this, Faye. These are my children, and I will fight with every breath in my body to protect them from your poisonous influence." Her eyes narrowed dangerously, but I held my ground, emboldened by the knowledge that I was fighting for something far greater than myself. "We'll see about that," she spat, turning on her heel and storming from the room. As her footsteps faded, I sank onto the couch, my hands trembling as I fought back tears of rage and despair. How could I have been so blind, so naive to the true depths of Faye's depravity? But even as doubt crept in, a newfound determination took root within me. I would not allow this bitter, twisted woman to dictate the course of my life or my family's future. Not anymore. With shaking fingers, I reached for my phone, opening the camera app and beginning to document the evidence of Faye's abuse. The cutting remarks, the emotional manipulation, the thinly veiled threats. Every cruel word, every caustic glance captured and preserved for the day when I would finally strike back. As the days passed, the collection grew, a damning testament to the true nature of the woman I had once foolishly called family. And with each new entry, my resolve hardened, my desire for retribution burning brighter than ever before. I would not be cowed, not be silenced or pushed aside like some inconvenient obstacle. I was a mother, a force of nature, and I would stop at nothing to ensure the safety and happiness of my children. The war had begun, and I would emerge victorious no matter the cost. "Faye, step back. I've heard everything." Carson's voice roared as he burst through the door, his eyes blazing with fury. "You have no right to threaten my wife." Faye's menacing glare faltered as Carson wrapped a protective arm around my shoulders, pulling me close to his chest. I clutched the damning evidence against Faye, bracing myself for the inevitable confrontation. "I should have known better than to trust a manipulative snake like you," Carson spat, his words dripping with venom as he glared at his mother. Faye's jaw clenched, her eyes narrowing into slits of rage. "How dare you speak to me that way after everything I've sacrificed for this family?" As Faye's vicious tongue unleashed on Carson, I couldn't help but feel a surge of anger towards her for the emotional torment she had inflicted on me. Her cruel taunts and empty threats had left me questioning my self-worth as a woman, as a mother. Just as I was about to unleash my bottled-up rage, the doorbell rang, breaking the tension. As I opened the door, my heart sank as I saw the sympathetic gaze of our dear friend, who had been a shoulder to lean on during my darkest moments. "Faye, you have no right to make threats against my wife," she said, her voice laced with anger. "She is carrying my grandchildren, and I will not have you terrorize her any longer." Faye's menacing glare softened as she realized the gravity of her actions and the consequences it could bring. As she begrudgingly let go of her bitterness, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief, knowing that her toxic influence would no longer affect our family. However, as Faye's demeanor changed, so did her perception of me. She realized that I was not the weak, helpless woman she had initially thought, but rather a strong, resilient individual who could stand up to her manipulative ways. As Faye begrudgingly accepted my strength, I felt a sense of empowerment, knowing that I had the ability to confront her and break free from her emotional hold. In that moment, I realized that Faye's actions were a reflection of her own insecurities and fears, rather than a personal attack against me. Her cruel words and empty threats were a desperate attempt to maintain control and assert her dominance. As I confronted Faye's fears, I felt a sense of pity for her, rather than anger. Her actions were a cry for attention and validation, which she sought through emotional manipulation. Ultimately, Faye's threats were a test of my resilience and strength of character. By standing firm in the face of her intimidation tactics, I proved that I was not easily swayed by her empty promises or hollow threats. In the end, Faye's actions only served to strengthen my resolve and determination to be a better person, a better mother, and a better daughter-in-law. This affair ends now, Carson. My voice rang out, clear and unwavering, as I threw the crumpled love letters onto the dining table before the astonished faces of our family. You won't control me anymore. Carson's eyes widened in shock, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. Beside him, Faye's expression contorted into a mask of rage, her hands clenching into tight fists. "How dare you bring this filth into my home?" she hissed, her gaze boring into me with a hatred I had never seen before. I met her glare with a steely resolve, emboldened by the knowledge that the truth was finally out in the open. "Your home? This is my home too, Faye. Or have you forgotten that I'm Carson's wife?" Harold, Faye's husband, shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his eyes darting between the damning letters and his wife's furious countenance. "Faye, what is the meaning of this?" Before she could respond, Carson's sister, Allison, spoke up, her voice laced with disgust. "It means my dear brother has been unfaithful, father, to Margot, to this family." A heavy silence descended upon the room, thick with tension and unspoken accusations. I could feel the weight of their judgmental stares, but I refused to shrink away, to cower in the face of their scrutiny. "Well," I challenged, my gaze sweeping over the assembled family members, "does anyone else have anything to say?" Faye's lips curled into a sneer. "You're making a fool of yourself, Margot. Carson would never betray me like this." A bitter laugh escaped my lips. "Betray you? Is that what you think this is about, Faye? Open your eyes. Your son has been carrying on an affair behind my back, and you've been too blinded by your own twisted desires to see it." Carson flinched as if struck, his face flushing with shame. "Margot, please, let me explain." But I had no interest in his excuses, his feeble attempts at justification. "Explain what, Carson? How you lied to me, day after day, while you were off gallivanting with your mistress. Or maybe you'd like to explain why you allowed your vile mother to abuse and torment me, all in the name of keeping up appearances." Faye's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Watch your tone, girl. You have no idea what you're talking about." "Don't I?" I shot back, my voice rising with each syllable. "I have the bruises, the recordings, the proof of every vicious word and cruel taunt you've hurled at me over these past months." Harold's brow furrowed, his gaze shifting towards his wife with a newfound wariness. "Faye, is this true? Have you been mistreating Margot?" Before she could respond, I plowed ahead, determined to lay bare the full extent of their betrayal. "It's all true, Harold, every word. And it's not just Faye. Carson has been lying to us all, carrying on an affair right under our noses." A collective gasp rippled through the room, and I could see the realization dawning on their faces, the scales finally falling from their eyes. Allison was the first to speak, her voice trembling with barely contained fury. "You bastard! How could you do this to Margot, to your own children?" Carson opened his mouth to protest, but I cut him off with a sharp wave of my hand. "Save it, Carson. I'm done with your lies, your manipulation. From this moment on, you and your mother have no hold over me or my children. We're through." As the chaos erupted around me, with Faye and Carson desperately trying to regain control of the situation, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The shackles of their oppression had finally been broken, and I was free. Free to forge my own path, to build the life I deserved for myself and my babies. And as Harold and Allison rallied to my side, their support and solidarity a balm against the sting of betrayal, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I would face them with the strength and resilience that had carried me through this darkest of storms. The war was won, and I had emerged victorious. "You played me for a fool, Faye." Harold's voice was cold, unyielding, as he stared down his wife, his eyes hard as flint. "All these years, and I never knew the true depths of your cruelty." Faye's lips twisted into a sneer, but I could see the fear flickering in her eyes as the full weight of her actions finally caught up to her. "Harold, please, you don't understand." "Don't I?" He cut her off, his tone sharp as a blade. "You abused my daughter-in-law, threatened to take her children from her. And for what? Some twisted sense of control?" Carson stepped forward, his face etched with desperation. "Dad, Mom, please, we can work through this, as a family." But Harold was having none of it, his gaze swinging towards his son with a mixture of disappointment and disgust. "And you, Carson, how could you let this happen? How could you stand by while your own wife was tormented, all for the sake of keeping up appearances?" Carson flinched as if struck, his shoulders slumping in defeat. I almost felt a pang of pity for him, caught in the crossfire of his own making. Almost. "I never meant for things to go this far," he mumbled, his voice barely audible. "I was just trying to protect Mom, to keep the family together." A bitter laugh escaped my lips before I could stop it. "Protect her? From what, Carson? The consequences of her own actions?" Allison stepped forward, her eyes blazing with righteous fury as she glared at her brother and mother. "You're both pathetic. Margot has shown more strength and resilience in these past few months than either of you could ever hope to muster." A swell of gratitude washed over me at her words, her unwavering support a balm against the sting of betrayal. At least someone in this twisted family had their priorities straight. Faye's gaze swung towards me, her expression a mixture of hatred and begrudging respect. "So what now, Margot? You've had your little tantrum, exposed us all for the world to see. Are you satisfied?" I met her glare head-on, my spine straight and unyielding. Satisfied? Hardly. "I want you out of this house, Faye, out of our lives, until you can learn to treat me with the respect I deserve as Carson's wife and the mother of your grandchildren." A stunned silence fell over the room, broken only by the sound of Harold's slow, deliberate clapping. "Well said, Margot," he murmured, his gaze never leaving his wife's face. "You heard her, Faye. Pack your things and leave. I won't have you poisoning this family any longer with your bitterness and manipulation." Faye's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air, her carefully cultivated facade of control crumbling before our very eyes. "Harold, you can't be serious." But the look in his eyes brooked no argument, no room for negotiation. For once, the iron-willed matriarch had met her match, and she had no choice but to bend to the collective will of those she had sought to dominate for so long. As she stormed from the room, her parting glare promising retribution, I couldn't help but feel a sense of victory, of hard-won triumph. The battle had been fought, the war won, and though the scars of betrayal still stung, I knew that I had emerged stronger, more resilient than ever before. Carson's pleading gaze found mine, his eyes brimming with unshed tears. "Margot, please, give me a chance to make things right. I'll do whatever it takes to earn back your trust, your love." I studied him for a long moment, weighing the sincerity of his words against the weight of his transgressions. In the end, only time would tell if our bond could truly be mended, if the wounds of his infidelity would ever fully heal. But as I felt the gentle flutters of life within me, a reminder of the precious souls I carried, I knew that I owed it to them, and to myself, to at least try. "We'll see, Carson," I murmured, my voice laced with a cautious hope. "We'll see. We've been through hell, but this new chapter is ours." Carson's voice was soft, remorseful, as he cradled one of our newborn twins, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "I promise I'll spend every day making it up to you and our children." I studied his weary features, the lines of exhaustion etched deep into his face after the tumultuous events of the past few months. A part of me still seethed with anger, the memory of his betrayal a festering wound that refused to heal. And yet, as I gazed down at the tiny miracles swaddled in my arms, I knew that harboring that rage would only breed more toxicity, more pain. "I don't know if I can ever fully trust you again, Carson," I murmured, my voice thick with emotion. "What you did, what your mother did, it nearly broke me." He flinched, but nodded, his expression one of resigned acceptance. "I know, and I'll carry that guilt for the rest of my life. But please, Margot, let me prove myself to you, to our family. Give me a chance to be the husband, the father, that you all deserve." A gentle hand on my shoulder made me turn, and I found myself gazing into the kind eyes of Harold, my father-in-law and unexpected ally through this entire ordeal. "He's not the only one who needs to atone," Harold said, his voice laced with regret. "I should have seen what Faye was doing, put a stop to her cruelty before it went too far. For that, I am truly sorry, Margot." I felt a lump form in my throat at his words, touched by his humility and willingness to shoulder the blame. Thank you, Harold. That means more than you know. Allison stepped forward, her expression one of fierce determination. We're a family, Margot, and families stick together no matter what. Carson and Faye made mistakes, but we'll get through this together. A warm sense of gratitude washed over me as I looked around at the faces of those who had rallied to my side, who had chosen to stand against the toxic influences that had nearly torn us all apart. Though the road ahead was uncertain, I knew that with their support, their unwavering loyalty, we could overcome any obstacle. All right, I said, my voice strengthening with each syllable. We'll take it one day at a time, rebuild what was broken. But know this, Carson. One more misstep, one more lie, and you're out. I won't let our children grow up in an environment of mistrust and manipulation, not again. Carson nodded solemnly, his eyes shining with a mixture of relief and renewed determination. You have my word, Margot. From now on, it's just us, a family, united and strong. As I gazed down at the precious bundles in my arms, their tiny faces scrunched in peaceful slumber, I felt a surge of fierce love and protectiveness. These children, my children, would know only love, only safety and security. The shadows of the past would not be allowed to dim their futures, not while I still drew breath. Faye's specter lingered in the periphery, a constant reminder of the darkness we had overcome. But in that moment, surrounded by the warmth and solidarity of those who truly mattered, I knew that her hold over us was broken, forever shattered by the resilience of our bond. A new chapter was beginning, one forged in the fires of hardship and betrayal, but tempered by the strength of our love and the unbreakable ties that bound us together as a family. And though the road ahead was uncertain, one thing was clear. We would face it united, our spirits unbowed, our resolve unshakable, for we were survivors, warriors in our own right, and no force on earth could ever break us again.